All right, well, let's get going. I think a few more folks might hop on in a bit, so we'll start with the routine things. First off, the minutes, they were all emailed out. Have you all had a chance to take a look at the minutes yet? Okay, and I'm guessing there are a couple of changes because I think the S was left off of Wade's last name again. So we'll need to fix that.
I saw a few punctuation things like double periods and a few but nothing content wise that I disagree with.
Okay. Is there anything else that people want to bring up as it relates to the minutes? Okay, then with those typo changes being corrected, I'd entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, and is anyone opposed to the approving of the minutes? Okay, hearing no opposition, then we'll call them approved. Moving forward, we have the council update. Do you know if Councilor Mitchell is going to be with us?
I did
or
not
if you have information from her? I
did not get a confirmation from her. I know that they've had busy days recently, and nothing from Councilor Mitchell to pass along as of today, but it's nearing the end of the year, so they've got a lot going on.
It is. Okay, so then we're ready then to jump right on into the heart of our discussion tonight, which I think tonight is going to be in particular about getting sort of laying a framework for what we do next year. And other than Konnette, everyone is coming back. And so this is going to be, particularly, yeah.
I think Meng is not going to be here.
Oh, that's right. Meng's not coming back either.
We're finding that out. I was, okay.
And we'll have some time at the end, as you saw on the agenda, to say goodbyes and thank yous to Konnette, Meng, and the other folks who won't be coming back next year. But I think right now, what we want to be thinking about is timelines and what we want to see from this process as a whole. And what I mean by that, to be more specific, is do we want to have a more truncated outreach process or a longer one, 6 months, a year, 2 years of outreach? Do we want to have, what do we want it to look like from a big picture level when we're reaching out to the community, and then roughly what sort of time frame we want to follow as we go forward and do that? Because my understanding, talking with Jahmai, and actually, CeCe, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Why don't we do that first?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm CeCe Ridder. I am the Public Engagement Division Manager for the city. And so Jahmai is part of my team. So just a little bit of who we are and what we do. So we have been part of the mayor's office up until this point, and now we'll have a city manager, so that will change in another month or so. But we have been part of the mayor's office. I have 7 teams that I manage. Marketing, which includes Jahmai and some other staff. The events team, who do all the fantastic events that happen in the city. The neighborhood and public involvement team. So that group is over all of the boards and commissions. So when you apply every year they do all of that process. You have a staff liaison. In Jahmai, they manage all of our staff liaisons. So we have 11 of those folks working with our boards and commissions. Also our neighborhood associations. So we have a number of those groups that we also work with, all of those volunteers. And then they also build out public involvement campaigns. So all of the city projects that have some sort of community involvement element, we help build out the plans on how to reach out to the community. So that's one main reason I'm here. I also have the arts program. I have cultural inclusion. Those are the folks that do the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, and lots of other things. Also community services. So we run the severe weather shelter, run social service funding, all of that. And then I have the Center for Mediation and Dialogue with the city, who do fantastic work. Lots of neighbors, mediations about their trees or the tree lines or the, those things that sometimes we argue about mediation does all of that. So there's about 20 staff members. And again, we're public engagement. We lovingly call each other or our team PED. So you'll probably hear the PED team a lot moving forward. So I'm here because we will be a major player in the vision moving forward. And really we'll be working with your group. You'll be doing a lot of the advising of what that outreach and what the whole vision plan looks like, and will help with the council and all of the big pieces that we have a lot to do now moving forward. So that's why I'm here, happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, and and we appreciate it. Look forward to working with you and your team more, and it's sort of going to be like Jahmai times 5 with all the different folks we have playing in, and sort of force multipliers from the city side to help us out. So that's going to be really great. All right, so then now diving into the heart of what we're doing, what I'd first like to talk about is how you all envision the visioning process, meaning, do you want to have multiple rounds of outreach versus one round of outreach? Do you have thoughts about how long you want to spend going through the various steps of outreach before we take a step back, look at the data, and start to compile it? I'll leave it kind of broad at first and see if folks have thoughts, and then we can start to narrow if that's helpful. So right away, I'll leave you with a minute or so to think about it, because I know we didn't put too much specifics into the agenda and everything, so you haven't had a chance to think about it. But once you do have some thoughts, unmute and let us know. And I'm taking some notes. Konnette obviously is doing minutes, and I'm taking a few notes for myself too.
We talked, can you all hear me? Okay, we talked a little bit last time about doing focus groups. And I think we might've even talked about whether we do that before or after the survey. I think there, it would be cool to do it before, so that that could help us to hone the questions that we ask. But also if we did it after, then we would know, we could ask more specific questions, like if there are certain trends that we notice in the survey data, we could dig deeper into those in the focus groups. So I don't know if that, if all that is like a good reason to do focus groups before and after. I guess I kind of lean towards doing groups after if we were only doing one or the other. Just my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's good. I think focus groups are going to be really important, especially as we do more and more virtual outreach.
Well, in terms of a timeline, my thoughts were we should definitely be planning to do some outreach this summer. But whether we complete it at the end of the summer, I think can be left open. There's so many factors that affect how well we can effectively do outreach, both in terms of COVID, but also the new structures in the city. And I mean, there are just lots of different pieces that are coming together in 2021. And so to predict that we're going to complete it by the end of the summer, I think is, I don't know, it just feels like it would be harsh for us to set that as a goal. Nevertheless, I wouldn't set it aside and say, oh, we'll just wait another year. I wouldn't want to do that either. So I'm in favor of doing some kind of a hybrid thing where we at least do some at the end of the summer. And then I think Jen's idea about focus groups, take the information we get, maybe do some focus groups, then reassess where we are. And
I agree with you. I think we need to do some things this year, starting at least in the spring or the summer, even if it's only virtual. And I think, does anyone here, just real quickly, I didn't even think about this, anyone here think we shouldn't be doing any outreach in 2021? Okay, I figured that. So I'm glad we're all in agreement about that this is the time to go, we're gonna do it. And the question is more gonna be how long we wanna do it for and what that overall process is gonna look like. So perfect, I'm glad we can establish that.
I wonder if it would be helpful to work backwards a little bit. Like
Okay.
maybe get a sense from folks on how many people do we want to reach and what should the breakdown be. I think last time we reached over 5,000, and I know THPRD just did their visioning process and they reached 10,000. So maybe we can agree on a number that we want to strive for. And then I would put forth that I think we should try and get more than 50% participation by the BIPOC community, and maybe see how we can get there from that way. So I'll just throw those two things out there and you guys can agree or disagree.
So I think that's a good way to frame it. How do we want to measure our outreach efforts in terms of people we touch and the way that we do it? What are folks' thoughts there? How many people do we want to actually make contact with? And I'll just break the ice on this one. Oh, Jen, were you gonna go ahead? You hop in.
I was just going to ask, when we did this 10 years ago, does anyone know what the population of Beaverton was at that time? Like what percentage was 5,000?
That's a good question.
I'll get the
Beaverton's
numbers.
grown.
I'll get the numbers.
I want to say that time Beaverton's probably around like 80 to 85,000 people or so at that time. But I think it's realistic to aim for somewhere in the 5,000 to 7,000 range, depending on what happens with COVID. Because I think optimistically, what I would like to see happen is have our outreach last essentially for the entirety of 2020 until the end of 2021. Because I think by the end of 2021, hopefully we can at least have some sort of public groups where we can have in-person conversations. But even if we can do that earlier, leveraging our ability to reach out to folks who otherwise we might not be able to reach out to via Zoom and other online forms, I think we can really actually expand the number of people we talk to. And I think an example of that is last night they had the interim city manager candidates broadcast their forum. I don't know if many of you were there for that, but I sat in on that. And one thing they mentioned is they had between 200 and 300 people watching and asking questions. And I guarantee you that if it were a live event in a pre-COVID time, they would not have 200 to 300 people listening to the interim city manager candidates. And so with that, I think we have a real potential to hit more people. And I'd like to see that happen. And I think giving us the full calendar year at least is appropriate. What do you all think? Is that overly ambitious or not ambitious enough?
I would just like to say that it's, I wouldn't want to put a set date on the end of it. One of the things that several people in our group have talked about is trying to reach out to those communities that haven't been reached. And that may require some creative processing on our part, and we may not, I don't want to put pressure on ourselves to be done by November and then risk that we missed some people.
I think it's fair.
Because I don't know what we're going to end up with. I don't know who is out there that we have been missed in the past that are not being heard, that kind of thing.
I think you're right that ideally we don't want to have a firm end that it's got to be done by this date, because there are a lot of unknowns at this point. But ultimately, we're going to need to present a couple of options to the city council. And when we're going to decide on those options is going to be January, February. It wouldn't be at the first meeting in January, because we'll want to get, especially for the new folks on the committee, get them sort of oriented in terms of how the VAC works. So more likely the February meeting, be deciding on a couple of ideas to pitch to the city council, because they're going to have to approve our funding, and to do that, they're going to want to have an idea of our process and timeline. And so with that, we can say that we'll want flexibility. And if things change, if circumstances change during our outreach process, we can always go back to the council and request something different. but we're going to have a product or a couple of options for them to choose between. And so when we're doing that, I wouldn't like to present something where we're going to be wrapping up outreach before the end of the calendar year. I think that would be a little rough given the unknowns, and I'd rather end up getting more information than we thought we were going to get and be ready to start compiling that data in November or October, rather than hit November or October and be like, there's no way that we're going to be able to reach out to as many people as we want to. What do other people think about that sort of timeline?
So are you, so January is the orientation for the new people, and then February discussing the idea. So are you presenting around March?
That would be the general idea, be presenting around March, and then CeCe can speak more to the timelines with budget and all that. But then once we present, we would hopefully then in the coming weeks be able to have some amount of money allocated to us, get the consultants and the folks that we need on board who are professionals to help us do what we need to do. And then I think in that timeline, maybe in June, actually begin the real outreach efforts with whatever sort of outreach it is, what we'll be doing, whether it's digital or in person or both. CeCe, does that sort of timeline make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're going to have a little bit of dancing to do because technically the city budget is due in January. So that's the time when the staff puts in our budget for the following fiscal year. And our fiscal year starts July 1. So we'll probably have to come up with some sort of placeholder number that we'll submit for the budget. Then we'll go to council with you all and pitch our options and ideas. They'll give us feedback. And then they may make some additional decisions about, well, you're going to need more than you put in the budget, or maybe this will cost less, or, you know, there's a few options for us to do supplemental budget twice a year as well. So I think we're just going to make it work.
And CeCe, is there information that we can provide you or questions you have for us now that might help you in figuring out that placeholder number?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, we do know that we have a few public engagement companies or consultants out there that we've worked with in the past. So we have maybe some idea of estimates of what they've charged us before. There's also some companies we work with that do, and Jahmai's team really works with, that do more technical, that could probably do like a community survey for us. And the goal would be for them to analyze data. So we're not crunching numbers and trying to figure that out by ourselves. So yeah, I think we'll do the best that we can on that. But I'm thinking more about it. I wanted to kind of sit in on this tonight and see what you all were thinking as well.
Great.
I think one of the options we had talked about earlier, Brian, was doing a little bit more engagement with council, since there's, you know, new folks there and there'll be a city manager now. So is it possible in January or February, before we go in front of them, to do a roundtable to get some feedback on their goals for the process, and just make sure we're aligned?
I like that idea. I don't know what Jahmai and CeCe can speak to how we do that, but I think that's a great idea. Is that something we can do?
Yeah, we actually, as staff, when we have major projects or things we need to talk to them, we do have a process every other week where we have a series of meetings with them. So yes, my plan is definitely to get in front of them and to lay some groundwork for you all before we go formally in front of the entire council. So I am happy to be your conduit and liaison for that part. So questions and things that you have that you want to talk to them about, we'll figure out how to present that to them. We also will need to talk to the interim city manager and have a pretty in-depth conversation about where that person thinks we need to go. So the short answer is yes.
Can I ask, is there a way to find out what previous costs were with the last process?
Yeah, we have most of those budget numbers. So that's also in my mind as some estimates of some things we could look at.
Another thing is I was wondering if Brian could reach out to the diversity board. And I do know that if we wanted to reach certain populations, there needs to be some type of incentive, like for a meal or something. And so that will be your additional cost to consider if we want to have a higher feedback from the minority populations.
Thank you. We will definitely be reaching out to the Diversity Advisory Board. And in fact, I think it's their current chair who's going to be a member of the VAC next year. Is that right, Jahmai?
We don't know that for certain yet
Oh, we
because
don't? Oh, never
council
mind.
hasn't said anything, but we definitely are looking for the possibility of having a stronger hand in the VAC as far as ties to diversity, the Diversity Advisory Board.
So hopefully we will, and certainly regardless, we'll be working with the Diversity Advisory Board on these things, and especially finding ways, like you're saying, incentives by providing a meal or other sorts of things to get even more input from folks who normally don't interact with government.
Yeah, I would also add the Committee on Aging will be someone we'll want to have a really good conversation with as well about their perspective of how to reach, probably the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board for the youth perspective, and what do they suggest? Human Rights Advisory Commission, probably another. I mean, we'll probably want to talk to everybody about what they think.
Just FYI, there is a working group. One of the projects that I've worked on was our ADA kind of compliance plan that we had, and there's a working group for that particular for ADA, and I keep in touch with one of the folks from there, but our city attorney has like all of their information. So when the time comes for doing outreach and kind of helping to kind of figure out what some of the parameters are around there, I can definitely connect you with that group.
Excellent.
I was also thinking, in addition to reaching out to all of the boards and commissions to get their input on how to reach certain populations, that we could also consider, one or a few of us attending those meetings to also have that meeting serve as a focus group.
I agree with that. I think that's something we should definitely do.
I think that part of our preparation process, we had talked about having some set questions that we bring so that when we get on there, when we put ourselves on their agenda, we can be efficient and not just take up a whole bunch of their time.
Yes. Okay, so then with that, to circle back to the main topic, we had the idea that we have a rough timeline for completing outreach by the end of the calendar year. And I think that's one option, and that's one that I like, and I proposed it, so obviously I like it. But we need more than one option to give to them. And so what other sorts of options do you all think we should present to the council for how we do this outreach and the timeline?
So Brian, I would suggest, since the first option is essentially 9 months of outreach, I would suggest a second option that doubles that timeline, for the reasons that, the first bit is going to be dramatically impacted by COVID. And so I think it is really important to do that extra workshop and digging a little deeper. So if we wanted the option to do one in the beginning and one at the end, that would give us some more time as well. So I would give one option to end next December 2021, and then I don't think it needs to be a full other year, but maybe June 2022 would be option number 2, to just slow it down just a bit.
I like that. What are people's thoughts on that?
I like that too. COVID, it's definitely something to consider.
Excellent. Do people prefer 18 months to 9 months? Should we make that option number one?
I think we should strive for a shorter timeline first, and if we can't meet that shorter timeline, then the extension would be feasible.
Okay.
Like if we drag it out, then we will definitely slow down a lot of the pace, comparing to try to get things done.
I would like to present it as an 18-month project that comes in 2 parts
Okay.
and have the intensified, the first 12 months as this intensified what we're going to do. And the last 6 months is to pick up where the pieces that we are missing and to compile all of that. So it's kind of a compromise between the 2 options.
So to make sure I'm understanding, so like the first 12 months would be our, whatever our regular outreach plan would be, and then we'd look at the data, and the idea would be we have 6 more months to do outreach after having reflected on the data that we do have. Perfect.
That does fall in line with kind of how in the past things have been done. There's kind of a period of sifting. So you get all this like massive amounts of data, and there's kind of, you see these commonalities, and then there's that second round of sifting. But one thing that hasn't happened in the past that it sounds like you're looking at a little different is there being like an idea of who didn't we talk to. In the past, it was really like, hey, we've talked to this number of people, but not, we haven't heard from X or Y. So I think that's a good differentiator to bring up to council, talking about the fact that in that second phase, you want to make sure not only to sift the data that you have, but to see who you haven't talked to.
Yeah, I could see that kind of phase 1 being a shorter window of getting the massive amount of data and then really slowing down for that sifting like Jahmai talked about, you know, because there might be a lot of themes that come up, and we're probably going to have a lot of conversations internally and probably with other stakeholders to determine which of those we need to go deeper in, and really look at our demographics and consider who else do we need, you know, how do we need to adjust our representation levels. And numbers, you know, I think there's just going to be a lot of stuff that we need to slow down and think through after we get that first dump of data.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. So now, do people have other thoughts in terms of broad timelines for outreach before we move to the next sub bit here?
I just wanted to throw out there at some point to talk to staff, maybe as one of those focus groups as well. I think it's really important for them, once we have all this data and we have our themes, like how will staff use those? How have they used the vision in the past? What would they like to see in this next iteration to be able to use that information moving forward? You know, there are particular questions or topics or things as well. So I'll just throw that out there as a parking lot option, but I would like the staff to be in there somewhere.
Actually, at our last meeting, I think we actually discussed that quite specifically, is that we want to talk with staff not only about what they would like, what their visions are, but also how would they like the data to be presented so that it's a functional document, so it's something they can refer to and not just sit on a shelf.
And that actually is a good segue into the next bit, which is there's been some discussion about how we use partners and whether that is something that we want to change or perhaps leave open, or if there are folks who really want it to stay the same the way we're interacting with partners. So I'll give you all a minute to think about this while I sort of lay out the background here, in that the partner, I think the partners started with the very first vision, yeah. But that's not anything that's a necessity. And having public-private partnerships can be really useful for accomplishing things. But at the same time, the way we structure it is how we the results we get come from the structure. And personally, I think that the last year or two, we haven't gotten a whole lot of results out of the structure. And it's been more of us checking in and the partners doing things they were already doing regardless of the VAC, and then telling us how they were doing on the things that they were already doing. And so I would like to rethink maybe our approach when we're asking the questions, and also what we do with the data and how we organize the data, to be open to seeing where the information takes us, whether that's something where partners are helpful or how they're helpful, or even organizing the document and the themes in different ways. But focusing on the partners, how do people feel like the partner program has been working so far? Do people feel that it's been working and useful? Or do people not feel that? Or do they not have opinions?
I think I'm too new to really know what the partner program is.
I think I'm even too new, and I've been here 2 years.
I have some opinions, but Meng, did you unmute yourself? You want to go?
Yeah, because I was thinking usually we only hear back from them after survey, during those partner reception, or if they're invited to come in and do presentation with us. That's really like the only time we'll actually hear from them to know how they were doing. But other than that, we just kind of let them do their thing.
Can I speak on when I was helping to reach out to the partners and contact them? I will say from what I did, it was a little challenging to find the right contact. And, you know, sometimes I would contact them. It's like, whoa, hey, I haven't heard about this for X amount of months or years and stuff. So like, you know, so I mean, I think those are a few of the challenges that I came across when I was trying to, you know, reach out to the partners.
Yeah, there's some disconnect between some organizations. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with both of those comments. And it's so interesting because one of the things I really like about the vision is how it is this big collaboration. Like, it feels pretty magical when you look at it. You're like, oh my gosh, all these people were part of this, and this is a big collaboration. So you don't want to lose that magic, but it somehow also has gotten stale. Like, I don't know if people have changed positions or, you know, yeah, when I did my calls, they didn't, I mean, they were already doing their thing. If it coincided with the vision, great, but this wasn't driving their process. But I think also sometimes things are about the process you do, even though the end result might be the same. So I think it's really important to engage with all of the partners and be talking to them and be building the vision with them, you know, just because the process will be more meaningful than and continuing those relationships and them seeing themselves in the vision. But the fact that we've been using it to try and hold them accountable, but there's no authority to, it's definitely created an awkward dynamic. So I want to involve them in the creation, but I don't like the oversight piece we've put in on the back end, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to.
Hey, Meng, I'm trying to remember, because you came on right when we were doing like theme teams, right? Yeah, and do you want to maybe, how much of that you remember, do you maybe want to talk about what it was like to have the partners involved in the theme teams?
Oh yeah. If I remember it correctly, I think we break up into different theme teams, and then the partners who came in and joined were also breaking up to join different theme team and, you know, take a look at all the feedbacks that we were getting. We had a professional that kind of put things together so that it's easier to read. And then they kind of prioritize certain things as well, like what stands out more in the idea, like repetitive, kind of like repetitive themes that things people really cared about. So they would highlight certain things that we wanted to consider it to be an action item. That was what I remember, if it is involving the partners. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess that's definitely it. Like the idea is they're more largely, I think you all have touched on it, they're more largely engaged in the creation portion, and then, you know, momentum being what it is, like that, you know, once they've kind of like put down on paper what, you know, they've shaped some ideas, then usually after that, it takes a lot of maintenance in order to keep up with, you know, if you're going to have 65, 100 partners, you know, but the idea is they were very, very excited in the creation portion.
And did you also meet with the partners individually to talk to them about which action item fits the organization and see if they wanted to participate?
Yes, yeah, that's another consideration is you made a sheet for each and every one of them and had a conversation. It was usually either the chair, you know, someone from the VAC, myself, and sometimes we had a consultant, you know, to do some kind of mediation and negotiation, and just shared like, hey, here's 15 things, you know, the 15 action items that we want to put your name on as being a partner and accountable for X or Y. So there was individual discussion. It had varying results, you know, having those conversations, but ultimately what was the main purpose of that is when we put their name on something, we want to make sure they know that their name is on it and that they're okay with that.
So I'm a little confused. Did partners develop after a vision was created as people to take action on the vision? Or did partners get created in order to create the initial vision?
Kind of both. So like initially partners were brought in as kind of, for example, like Jen had mentioned, like focus groups. So partners were brought in and like, hey, we want to hear what are some things that the future of Beaverton should look like. And TBF&R, for example, is like, hey, we want to make sure that there's a safe, you know, that we have more people that know CPR or something like that. And so since that was something that they were working on, they say, we'll be accountable, we'll make sure that happens. And so then that becomes an action when it was in line with what a lot of the feedback that came from folks are. It wasn't just kind of like, hey, we're working on this new training and we want to put that in the plan. It wasn't anything like that. It was just where there was a fit and they were already kind of working on something, or they had the capacity to work on something, they agreed to it and went with it.
It just feels like we're getting ahead of ourselves and asking people to partner in carrying out the vision is a different process than going to groups and finding out what they would like to include in the vision. It just feels like it's two different sets of questions and we could really get bogged down trying to do both. So I'm sort of feeling like I'm taking a cue from what Brian said, and if we don't need to have this partner concept to get started, maybe it'll develop again later. But to get started, as I recall, our initial goal was to reach as many people that represent the full diversity of the community. And if that's our goal, then the partners may or may not be a part of how we end up doing that.
So
At the same time,
wait, can I?
Go ahead.
Sorry. How would you see engaging or outreaching to the partners, like the businesses and organizations that's a separate process to me than recruiting partners. Would you think that's right?
Sure. I think that in the outreach stage, anyone who's a partner right now, we want to talk to. And because there are people who are invested in the city of Beaverton and have worked with us in the past, and they're going to have good ideas and connections to other folks to make sure we get a really complete sampling of the community. But I think that the question I was asking was more like, do we want, because as we start working with a consultant and formalizing what sort of a broader survey would look like, how our outreach is going to go, I was thinking it's a good idea to remain open to the possibility of changing the way we work with partners after the survey. Because if we have that framework set, then we'll want to work around it. We'll want to work within that framework when we're doing our outreach. And so my question to everyone was, do you all agree that we should be open to changing the way we're using partners post-survey? Because if people really like the structure, then that's something we should talk about too.
Well, I'm thinking about some of the things that Meng has said in terms of people who are often not counted. And if we use partners as our structure, my sense is we are less likely to include some of those people that don't really have organizations that represent them, so to speak. And so I would rather go back to basics and say, who is in our community? How do we reach them? And I don't have all the answers to that, obviously, but I think partners is a tool that we may end up using, but I wouldn't want to start with that as our structure.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm sorry. Who is that?
Okay. It's Jen. It's okay.
Oh, is that as a engagement activity, which is what I had thought that we were doing with the partners, was helping to engage that part of our community as well as the individuals in our community. It wasn't as effective as I think it could have been. And that maybe if we had fewer, one of the things was we had so many partners, it was hard to know if you were really engaging them or not. Jen, go ahead.
Thanks, Konnette. I was just thinking it would be good to get some background from somebody who's familiar, who's really familiar with these partners. If there are any sort of super partners, who have been really involved in the past, who were, maybe really involved in the visioning process last time around, and who, had these priorities that they were working on, who we don't want them to feel slighted. Like they were left out this time, or maybe their voice was included up front, but then we didn't want to partner with them after the fact. So I would want to think that through and know if there's anybody who kind of fits those criteria, if that makes sense.
I think that, that HQ was really good partner, and really they were reaching parts of the community that we might want to reach as well. We had the Metro was one of those partners. There was a lot of good stuff that was done. It was kind of, I think there were partners that took hold of the vision and really ran with it, and others that, like people have mentioned, found something that they could contribute, but didn't do something new.
I think, this is CeCe. Yeah, I think as staff, what we've talked about is the same conversation you're having. So this is good. Right, it's about the sustainability of the partner projects or the partner relationships after the fact, right? And what I've heard you say is, have we done a really good job on re-engaging these folks over and over and over? Not particularly. Also what Sarah said at the beginning about, the accountability piece or whatever word, Sarah, that you said, but what they're already doing, and Meng said, they're already doing a lot of these things. So are we offering them as the city resources and things to be accountable to the pieces of the vision? We're not offering grants for them to do another thing, or what, and it's really the age-old question. Also, the Diversity Advisory Board also grappled with the first iteration of the DEI plan. they had all these partners and recommendations for the school district and all of that. And then we quickly realized, oh, we don't actually influence what the school district does or other, we only have so much influence. And so that's at that point, that's when we turned to an inward city focus on how we were going to use the data that we got was to do good for what the city has control over, where we put our money, what the projects are, what we use the data for. So those are just other pieces I would offer. I think this is a great conversation, and yeah, we do need to figure out how we want to use the partner process and what makes sense.
I do want to give one other, just hindsight being 2020. I definitely, to be candid, like, I fell into the trap of more is better. And I think that the thought process of be it a small one, but one of the thought process was the numbers need to be more impressive, get more people involved. And it wasn't so much geared towards, are these the right people to be involved? So if there's any advice for that, as far as partner engagement or getting partners involved, is I don't know if necessarily it needs to be a yes or no, but definitely don't let it be we need more just for the sake of having more numbers.
And I think a lot of like the number of like comments that we have received, it's like a total thing that we have received from different engagement that happen. But personally, I would prefer to have more like in-depth conversations with like more in-depth, more like theme-based conversations instead of just what did you want to get out of Beaverton type of, okay, I want to see this, I want to see that. And it was just a lot of comments really. But if it could be more theme focused, let's get more people talking about a specific subject. I think that will help us understand what people are thinking about certain subjects instead of just getting comments. That's just a thought.
I really agree with that. And I think for CeCe and Jahmai, when we're reaching out to consultants and folks, I think that's something that we should be talking to them about when we're deciding who we're going to choose, someone who will be good at being able to sit on those discussions or take the information from those discussions and turn that into some sort of numerical figure or something that we can count when we're putting things together, because that's a lot harder to count than comments and tallies and check boxes. But I agree with Meng. I think it's much more valuable.
I agree too, but I want to throw out a devil's advocate argument here. And that is that if we are reaching out to people who have never been touched before, we are less likely to get a long, in-depth conversation out of them. And so we need to be open to the possibility that someone may just make one statement to us and we need to hear it. And we need to be prepared for it. And I think and I don't want to belabor this too much, but my concern with using the partners as our structure is that we end up only talking to people who have some kind of an internal structure already, and those elements in the community that have avenues to speak. And we may miss some of those elements in our community who do not have pre-established avenues. And it's something we should be alert to.
And that reminded me to reach out to the BOLD graduates, which is the program that I graduated from, that has a lot of minority people who had, spend 3-4 weeks to go through the training. At least during my time, is 3 to 4 weeks of Saturdays to go through training to understand what CD does. And these are like a pre-select group of people already who has been interviewed and willing to give a lot of comments about what they want to see done. And a lot of time, these are already like leaders in the community that we could actually tap into.
So to put sort of a bow on this conversation, Sarah?
Can I just have one more comment before the wrap?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the other way we can use partners, and this might not be fully formed, so sorry, but it is if we could do just hey, like mass, hey, can you send us your most recent strategic plan or vision or your goals, just so we have a sense, like maybe even before we do the survey or something, just to get a sense of what each person or each group's priorities are. Because I think then when we're putting the document together, that might change what, or it might somehow inform it, right? If we already know one group is really working on this, maybe we wouldn't put it so heavy on Beaverton staff too. I don't know how it would exactly, but so not something where we're holding them accountable for, but we still want to all be moving in that same direction. Just loose strings. So sorry if that didn't make complete sense, but.
So it sounds like folks are open to rethinking the way in which we work with partners in the current structure we have now. Does anyone disagree with that? Anyone really committed to the structure we have now, or think that's something we need to stick with, or that we need to flesh this out a bit more than we have? Okay, good. So I like that. We've come to a couple of good, just to recap, we've discussed about 2 different sort of options for our outreach structure and some sub options within those we think are good. And we'll talk more about those in January, once we have sort of the board that will, or the committee that will be implementing them. And it seems like, at least right now, we all are in agreement that while partners provide some value, we're open to rethinking how we work with them. And those things are really what I want to accomplish tonight. Before we move on to the final few things on the agenda, where we have a staff update and then the farewell to those of us who won't be joining us in January, sadly. Does anyone else have anything they want to share? Because we're a few minutes ahead of schedule, about the visioning process, anything we talked about tonight, thoughts and comments they had that maybe didn't feel like they fit in a particular spot, but they want to get out there. All right, excellent. Well, then staff update is next. I'll let Jahmai and CeCe.
Cool. I think I'll take this one if you don't mind, CeCe. Is that okay? Cool. Yeah. So I've got a few things. Last night, I know some of you were able to watch, but there's the interim city manager recruitment process that was going on. And so last night, we had 3 finalists at a public social hour that were able to just kind of chat and tell a little bit about themselves, ask some questions. And then CeCe, I think you had mentioned it was over, or possibly it might have been Sarah, but there were like over 200 folks that had attended. And so there were some very hard-hitting questions too. But ultimately, the role of the interim city manager, it's expected to begin in January and serve about 6 months. And the goal of the interim city manager is more or less, again, as I may have mentioned in the past, to help lay the groundwork for what a city manager for the city of Beaverton will do. And yeah, so that's about that. If you have any further questions about that, shoot me an email, and then expect to hear probably within the next few weeks. We'll have the decision that council's made. And from the sounds of it last night from the council meeting, they didn't say who, but it sounds like they want to forward a recommendation onto HR. So that's exciting.
Before you move on that note, once we know who it is, can we arrange to invite them to whatever the next meeting is that we have after they're appointed? Maybe not our first January meeting, but I think it'd be nice, even if they just pop in for 5 minutes, just to know who we are, especially since we're going to be coming forward with this big request and we're really going to get started probably on their tenure.
I would
Yeah,
assume-
I'll work on it. I'll work on it. They are, I mean, as you can imagine,
They will be busy.
everybody wants a piece of this person. So
Me too.
yeah, I know, so do we. Everybody will, yeah.
Mhm. Good, yes. Then next up, this I'm super excited about. If you haven't heard already, Winter Lights is coming. A lot of people ask about like, hey, you know, is there gonna be like a tree lighting or any of that? Taking an entirely different COVID-friendly approach. And so this year, they're on Friday, beginning Friday, we're going to, through January 3rd, there's going to be various locations. I think 4 on Friday and then 1 on Saturdays opening up. So we'll have 5 different locations. And the Winter Lights, each location has a different theme, which is exciting. And so they're going to be open nightly for viewing and for photo taking, so you can do selfies. And please use the hashtag Beaverton Winter Lights, because I want to be able to see what people are posting online. And so anyhow, yeah, there's it's social distancing friendly spots throughout various parts of the city. You can go to beavertonoregon.gov/winterlights. And I think that there's probably even a banner on the homepage. Just click on that. Since we are all going to be at home a lot more, now's a good time to get into One Book, One Beaverton if you haven't already. The current book that the city collectively is reading is Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption by Brian Stevenson. And so this was just released, I think, a month ago. Like it might have been like 2 or 3 weeks ago. The book reading started. And so in January, the library is going to have some related special events. So you still have plenty of time to read the book. And so in the past, like we've done with other One Book, One Beaverton, there's discussion groups. They've had author communication where the author talks a little bit about it. And so definitely, again, the title, Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption. Read the book. If you haven't seen the movie, don't watch the movie till you read the book, you know, so don't, we're not cheating like that. And then the last thing on the agenda that I have is jot down highway HWY217.org. What that is, that's there's an auxiliary lanes project. We know that there were some ODOT funds that were brought up in a new project for Highway 217 to kind of look at how on-ramps, off-ramps, and I forget the auxiliary lanes are going to work. And so ODOT has asked for a little bit of help because they want to definitely see spread the word for folks, particularly in Beaverton, because it affects us in more so than it might be for other cities. And so the project dollars are $134 million worth of project money that's going for construction beginning to the end of the year. And the project itself is going to take around 4 years to take place. So it's very useful to know what impact that's going to have on the community, and also what travel on that's going to be like, and how it's going to hopefully remedy some of the problems that they've had with 217. So again, that's highway217.org. So HWY217.org. And I think that's about all I have for staff update.
All right, so then the last main piece on the agenda here is a farewell to the folks who won't be coming back. And some of them aren't here, but Konnette, Charlie, and Meng are all here. And I just want to say from myself, thank you all. You all have contributed a whole lot to this committee. I know Charlie and Konnette, you all have been here 3 years and started the same time I did. And Meng, you were here. Is this your 6th year? That's incredible. So thank you very much for that, and the work you did on the past vision and everything you've done helping us set up for this next one. And I think you can be sure that we'll be reaching out to you in particular once we get going underway for ideas of outreach to folks. And if you all want to, I don't want to put pressure on anyone because some people don't like it, but if you'd like to say anything or have last thoughts of wisdom for us, we'd appreciate it.
I'll share a little bit. It's been a really interesting experience for me. Before bowl training, I was not familiar with any government related things at all. And it was after that training that I got involved with City of Beaverton and also State of Oregon in the massage board. So it's definitely been a really interesting journey. Learned a lot of things, and kind of know how things work a little bit better and know where to find information to share with the community and to bring more inputs from the community as well. And so wanted to thank you all for allowing us to have this opportunity to learn and to grow as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I definitely did have a question. I've seen, Charlie, you have a guitar back there. Not once have you played the guitar. Is that something you do all the time, or?
At this moment, it's just for show.
Hey, that's cool.
I will say, it's been a great experience. I mean, it's been great to know come to know every single one of you. I wish we could have met in some cases in person a little bit more, but it is what it is. And, I wish everybody the best on their journey. And it's been a pleasure and honor to, work along every single one of you. So.
I can't tell if Konnette's trying to break through.
Well, I didn't know I was leaving. My turn up?
So, Konnette, we definitely will need to chat because I think there should have been some communication in advance, but yeah, I'll need to.
We'll talk later then.
Yes, for sure.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I didn't realize this is my last meeting either.
Oh, really? Oh, geez.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, okay. This is like going to a party you get kicked out.
I think some of the questions, I think when your term is ending and then you reapply. So I don't know if that process happened or.
Yeah, I think there's an email went out from the city to folks to reapply.
Yeah, and also Jahmai reached out as well.
So sorry if I apologize. I thought that you all were making very intentional decisions here, and that sounds like it may not have been the case.
Well, I'll talk with Jahmai and
reach out to Jahmai. And
in the meantime, I've really enjoyed working with you all. And Meng, you were when I first came on, I really felt like your leadership was really helpful to me, and to go through that first process of having all of the outcomes and preparing the first report that we did and contacting the partners was really a fascinating experience and a good efforts toward civic engagement. I really appreciated being part of that.
Thank you, Konnette.
Yeah, I mean, nonetheless, whether I'm back or not, I definitely appreciate all you guys, and it's been great.
all right, well, hopefully we can get everything sorted out in the meantime for the folks who weren't so sure that this was going to be their last meeting, and hope we can come to a place where we can all do what we need to do here. So I think the last thing then that we have is the roundtable. Does anybody have anything they want to share for the good of the order or things going on in the other groups they're involved with? Okay, Jahmai.
Yes, I also wanted to mention too that this will most likely be my last VAC meeting as the primary staff liaison. I know that now that visioning is going to be moving into a different gear, there's definitely going to be more support, and I'll be doing a lot of work as far as digital is concerned. So I won't be able to be as hands-on with this group as I have been in the past. I definitely appreciate the time that I have had with each and every one of you. It's awesome. And it's nice to have this kind of extended family. I'd say that, that each of you all are and have become. So thank you.
Thank you, Jahmai. I mean, I forgot that this is your sort of farewell too. And I really appreciate, and I know everyone else here appreciates all the work that you've put in over the last year or so. Or is it 2 years?
It's been, I think, a year and a half. It's gone by really strange year to be
so
to
strange.
have, but yeah. But
you were also around at the beginning of my first 3 years, and so definitely 1.5. Yeah.
And I think that the lesson I've learned is that once you're in VAC, you're always in VAC. That's just how that goes. It's kind of, it's this family. So it's cool.
Okay, well, unless anyone has anything else.
I just want to mention, we'll have another staff liaison for you that will intro to you in January. And of course, I'll be here in the background. I might not always be at your meetings, but I'll be driving the bus from my side. You're driving the bus from your side, and we'll meet in the middle and do some really great, amazing work together. So I'm really excited for what's like 2.0, or maybe this is 5.0 vision. I don't know. We've been through a couple of iterations already, but it's gonna be really great. I think we're gonna do some really amazing work.
All right, well, everybody, thank you for being here tonight. Normally we don't meet in December, and so you're doing extra duty, and I think it's going to pay off for us. So thank you for that. Thank you for a great year. Well, all things considered. And I look forward to continuing to work on this project next month.
Hey, Brian, real
Yes.
quick, will there be a January event in place of the dinner event?
You mean instead of the partner reception?
No.
Like for the new members?
Boards and commissions.
Commission, or the dinner that we had for boards and commission. And
that is a question for someone other than me.
That's the question for CeCe, I think.
CeCe.
Yes, boards and commissions annual volunteer recognition dinner. We are not doing the in-person dinner and buffet. It just would not be a good idea this year. But we are putting together some ways to honor all of our volunteers. So there'll be some virtual recognition and maybe some things in the mail arriving for you. I think we're going to do I've seen the plan. I think it's going to be a really nice honoring of all of you and all the time that you have given. It's not as fun as the dinner, and the nice meal. But it's always good. But we're going to do our best this year. So more to come on that soon.
So are we sticking with the first Wednesdays? So our next meeting will be January 6th?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay, then with that, I hope everyone enjoys the holidays and stays safe and happy and healthy. I'll hopefully see you all in January.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone.